Right. Okay. All right. So welcome to the April SAMM community call. As I said, we have two particular topics here. First of all, we're very happy to announce for the SAMM User Day that we have a detailed agenda available. So if you haven't seen that before, we have, as part of the OWASP, the Global AppSec OWASP conference in Lisbon, Portugal, end of June, we are organizing again an in-person SAMM User Day. So this is really a day where we really want to have active SAMM users participate, share their stories, share their experiences with each other, and also for you to have the opportunity to talk in person to people in the core team and share whatever you want to share with us. So we have a full agenda. So it's a dedicated room we have in the same conference center as the Global AppSec conference. So it's on Wednesday before the main program, where we'll have, we'll start up at 9 a.m. We have Bart, who will start out with a fast track security by design keynote. And then we have Daniel Hood, who's actually going to come from Down Under for practical advice for using application risk profiles, which is a specific aspect of the threat assessment security practice in SAMM. And then Nariman, who we also have here in the call, is going to share his story about OWASP SAMM and using OWASP SAMM within his organization. And Dag, who incidentally is also here, is going to talk about how to bring OWASP SAMM to the boardroom and to make that as a topic on that level. After the lunch, we'll have Jonathan Marshall, who's coming over from Canada, actually on discussing about threat modeling, which is also one of the security practices within SAMM. And then Dr. Jason Voschel is also going to share how OWASP SAMM helps maturing SDLC at Fortune 500 companies. We'll organize also a roundtable. Specifically, we're going to cover assessment methodologies. It's a really hot topic, how to do assessments, how to organize that. We have a couple of material available, but this is really going to be a roundtable discussion with everybody involved. And then afterwards, we'll have a wrap up, and we'll also finish with a SAMM dinner so near or close to the conference center. Everybody who will be registered for the SAMM User Day will also have the opportunity to join us for dinner, which will be actually sponsored by Codific and Torian as well. So there you go. So really happy with the lineup. It's a mix of people from the core team, but also some users who use the SAMM tool and the SAMM project. Registration is easy. So you go to the Global AppSec conference, I would say site. Should be able to find it. We have a direct link here to the registration. So obviously you can register for the Global AppSec conference as well, but don't forget to register separately for the SAMM User Day. It's probably linked or registered as one of the trainings. So there is a small fee of about 50 euros plus some fee and taxes to cover the basic, I would say, catering. That's going to also be included, and making sure that we have the room available. So we already have about 10 people registered so far, even before the agenda was disclosed. So that's a really good sign. We have about room for about 60 people in total. So I would say, don't wait to register. Full is full. So that's it for the SAMM User Day. We'll definitely also going to send around a couple of emails around this. Also, we will announce also the SAMM User Day as part of the Global AppSec in San Francisco in September. There is also going to open a call for topics or cover presentations as well. That brings me to the second topic of today of our community call. We did launch a 2023 questionnaire, which ended up also completing or actually finished in 2024. Beginning of 2024, a couple of months back. We had quite some responses. So in total, we had 153 responses, which is about the same as we had last time. in 2022, but we did put some more work into cleaning up entries. There were clearly some inconsistent or spam entries that we removed, so we ended up with about 125 cleaned up responses. We also applied some of the lessons learned from the last questionnaire in 2022. And overall, we came up with higher quality answers, and overall also a higher net promoter score, which I'll explain later on, which is really good as well. So I'm going to go over some of the responses. Not everything is included. We're also going to publish all the detailed results as part of a blog post. Some of the interesting data points here is that overall geographic origin of people that participated, majority European-based, and then the second part is North America, and then others, so Africa, Asia, and so on are in there as well. Years of experience is a good spread. So we have a couple of new people still, but then quite some other like people that are using SAMM for quite a long time already. And then experience overall in SAMM, applying SAMM, I would say half of the people, the respondents, are new, 0 to 2 years. And then some more experienced people, and then even people who are using SAMM already for quite some time. Industry verticals. This is an aspect where we learned from last year. We made a better list of verticals, and this reflects somewhat the same results as we had last year. Overall majority origin from software or technology, followed by finance. And then we have healthcare, manufacturing, and so on. Energy utilities are the majority of the top 5, 6 of respondents. But what we see here is quite a big spread over different verticals that are using OWASP SAMM, which is interesting as an interesting data point. In terms of data or development methodologies and methodologies overall being used, we see that Agile and DevOps are being used quite a lot, but that Waterfall is still being used by quite a couple of respondents, which is not that big of a surprise. Then what the scope is of typical SAMM assessments in most of the people applying this on a team level or a business unit level, followed by organization and even also product level. So you see there's a mix of different scopes. And then what kind of methodology is being used? This is an interesting one. We'll probably do a little bit of more of a deep dive when we do the write-up of this. Most of respondents use what we also recommend overall is doing free-form interviews, workshops, and then still some people do question by question or sending over the SAMM questionnaire to the different teams. So that's how we see assessments being done. In terms of organization sizes, big spread overall. You see that most respondents are coming from I would say certainly to European norms, bigger organizations. So the majority over 1,000 or between 1,000 and 10,000. But also smaller organizations are using SAMM, but also really big ones. You see that 5 respondents are working at organizations that have more than 100,000 employees. So that is obviously quite big. In terms of other standards or maturity models being used, ISO 27000 is a big one, also quite popular, especially also in Europe. So there's a correlation there with the number of respondents. But we see an overall growth in the usage of NIST, CSF, and SSDF. If we compare that to the 22 responses and then some other NIST models as well. We were really happy with the feedback that we've received from a lot of the respondents on the question like, what do you like with OWASP SAMM? So a lot of people are quite happy with it. We selected the top 5 quotes in the overall list, which are also going to publish on the website. I'm not going to read them out, but I think they speak for themselves. So I think we have quite some positive inputs that we've received. We've also had quite some good input in terms of what can we improve with the project. More guidance, even more guidance on how to apply this on a team level in different verticals for DevOps and so on. Also questions on how to include new trend technologies. Not surprisingly, AI, machine learning came up quite some times. And there's also still quite a big demand for mapping, specifically to NIST CSF, but also to other frameworks and even regulations like European Cyber Resilience Act and others. And also quite some remarks on the tooling that we're making available. Now, recently we had the core team summit a couple of weeks back, and we took this and we've already started to take some of this input and work it or use it as part of our upcoming work. What are we going to do? We're going to definitely use more mapping and as much as possible also leverage the OpenCRE mapping towards SAMM, because OpenCRE in itself contains a lot of mapping to others. There's also a mapping of the 62443, I would say, standard. For tooling, we will definitely further improve, especially also for more international users, the usage of the Excel spreadsheets and the Google spreadsheets. Those are I would say, the officially supported tools. And then we have a whole list of other open source tools that were donated in the past, or there might be donated in the near future, that we will list and make available to everyone who's going to be interested. In terms of the benchmark, quite some questions there. We're still accepting data sets. We will also improve the guidance and support for that. Brian participated in the core team summit for a couple of hours, and so we're making progress. So we luckily already have some basic number of data sets, but we will and we can accept more. So if you're sitting on a couple of data sets that you think are useful for us, get in touch. We can definitely use that. And then soon for the guidance, we'll also start with the SAMM podcast. So that will come to a podcast reader or audio listener soon. Topics that came up as, I would say, suggestions, but we already had covered, will cover as part of the frequently asked questions, some fundamentals course, which we have available. A couple of questions still on the not applicable aspect, where we're going to point to the blog post. Questions on Agile, which is okay, but we have quite some guidance available there as well. So we're going to add those pointers to the frequently asked questions. Then the NPS score. So we had a question, which is the question, would you recommend SAMM to a friend or colleague? And you see from 0 or 1 being the least likely to 10, the most likely recommendation. We had so we mapped this on what we call a net promoter score. If you don't know what it is, look it up. But we ended up with a high score of 60, which is a score on a scale of -100 to +100, which is really good. So the last time we had it in 22, it was about 38, which is already good, but 60 is really exceptionally high. We're really happy with that, and we're going to make sure that we at least keep that level of NPS, I would say, for the coming months and years. But that's good feedback. And then we also asked a couple of questions on, okay, in your experience, what kind of levels of SAMM do you see? And what we've done is we've took the input, which you can see here, and we calculated the overall average score that we came up with, and also compared it with the 2022 results. The average score of some assessments that we had by the respondents so far is 1.24, which is on the lower end, but obviously not every organization is aiming for really high scores of 2 or 3s, but at least you have this data point. It's interesting to note that this score went up a little bit compared with the previous survey, which we did at the end of 22. which we had 1.2. And if we're going to go for the 5 business functions, we see overall that the scores are a little bit the same or are higher than the previous time. So governance business functions stayed the same at 1.16. The design business function actually increased 5 points from 108 to 113. And then also you see the same thing in the implementation business function, which already was high the previous time, 1.26, now 1.36. Verification stays about the same, and then operations is by far the highest. It's already increased also by 131 to 139, which is overall for the 5 business functions the highest, which I think is logical. It's also, I think, good that we have on the operational side a higher maturity level. But until the point that we have more official benchmark numbers, you can see that this is, I would say, the rates that we see from the respondents based on a simple questionnaire. So if you're looking for averages, we have those available here. We also had the question, like, in your experience, when you implement some roadmap, where do you see the biggest improvements? And what we see here is that overall, especially a little bit the governance, but especially design and implementation grow or have improved by implementing some, and have improved higher or faster than we saw in the previous one. So in 22, that made up about 40%, but now you see that overall improvement by far is done with design and implementation practices, which is good because that represents a little bit what we call the shift left in implementing an SDL. And then last but not least, how important is it for you to compare yourselves? So a lot of organizations still, or a lot of respondents still want to compare themselves. And there was one important question here, which I really want to cover. And that is the question, would you be willing to contribute data to the SAMM benchmark? Which, when you look at this and you compare it to 2022, is a little bit different. I think what makes a big difference here is the way we ask the question is, yes, great, here are the instructions. And we added a pointer like how to do that, how to submit data sets to the benchmark, because compared to the 2022 survey, now it has become much clearer on how you can do that and what this entails. And you see there is a drop back from 70%, where in 2022 it was, yes, we can do that, but it wasn't really clear on how to do this. Now it's more clear, and it's good that still more than 40% say, okay, yes, we want to do that. But there is a growing number of people who don't want to do this because they realize what that means. And then there's also quite some questions or objectives that we can ask or that we can go over, and we'll definitely go a little bit deeper into this part when we were going to write up the blog post. So overall, a little bit of a mixed feedback here. Still good that still quite like 40% want to submit their data sets, which is good. And if you're one of those respondents and haven't done so, get in touch with us. If you don't want to do that, then we'll talk to us and see what your main concerns would be. I'm going to cover questions after the recording. So, Dimitar, I see that you've raised your hands, but is actually the last one. So I'm going to stop the recording so we can open up for a Q&A. One moment.